And those of you, a couple of you here, used to sitting on the ground, either cross-legged or with your legs out, with your back against something or supported under the hips. As long as you're really comfortable in that position for a half an hour, then do feel free, of course, to do that. I like to, when I'm concentrating on breathing, sitting in a chair. And I know that many people who meditate do it in a chair. And there's nothing wrong with using a chair, so that's why I want to start in a chair today. My chair was made for someone who's a bit taller than I am, as indeed most chairs are made for people who are a bit taller than I am. So for that reason, and because I need my feet on the ground, I've got a bolster under my feet. You can use blocks, you can use books, but with your thighs parallel to the ground, your feet want to be touching the ground or something, so that you can let your feet drop into the floor. In order to come into, and of course a sitting position, like every other position in yoga, we always start with the body. We always have to start with the posture. It's a marvelous way to bring us inside, our focus. But it's also essential so that we're not lopsided and we don't end up with problems that we didn't start with. So when sitting, I normally lean forward just to start with, elbows on the knees, and really drop the weight of your elbows into your thighs and see if you can release the shoulders. And as you do so, just look at the skin on the back of your torso. Now, I think of this as I know it isn't a square, but I think of it as roughly enough square shape. So you've got two shoulder corners, and you've got two hip corners, and those are the corners of the square of the back of your torso. And in between those 4 points, as you breathe out, obviously as you breathe out, can you just focus on releasing the skin on the inside of the back? Oh, it's like a melting feeling. Oh, it's very pleasant, and it can happen immediately. It's great, the power of our mind. Now, as you breathe out, another exhalation, breathe down through the spine as if you're visualizing the breath traveling at speed down through the spine. And as it hits the bottom of the spine, the tail gets pulled down, 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 down. And from the tail being pulled underneath your chair or underneath the ground, you get pulled into the upright position very gently from underneath. So you're not using your shoulders to come into the upright position. The head position is the only critical thing really I want to keep on coming back to. So if at any point you notice your attention wanders and you just need to acknowledge to yourself, oh, drifted off again. Not that we're going to be meditating as such this morning. When you notice your attention has wandered, come back to the position of the head. If it's in exactly the right place in the middle, easy, your shoulders are relaxed, and you have exactly the same amount of weight going down to the left sit bone and the right sit bone. Exactly the same amount of weight on the left and on the right. And that isn't a small ask. That's means you've got to be very quiet to feel accurately. Quiet in the body, I mean, as well as obviously the mind. And it means that the adjustments you make are very fine. And you do it not by tightening, but by releasing. So you don't tighten one side to balance, you release the other side. Check you've got nothing going on in the top of the shoulders, between the shoulder blades, around the Adam's apple. The eyeballs are quiet inside the face. And just see that you're not doing anything in the thighs, the hips. I'm giving this a bit of time because it happens. You don't have to do anything. If the head's in the right place, if you're releasing the back, if you're releasing the face and the throat and the jaws, everything else, it will just drop and settle, and you'll find yourself becoming more comfortable. And then let your attention turn to the breath. Your breath as it comes in and it goes out. Not doing anything, strictly audience, theme of the week, witnessing ourselves, sitting here as the breath comes in completely automatically. It leaves automatically as well, but they have a slightly different effect on the body. So again, not spending time on this, just noticing a couple of breaths. What happens to the shoulders as the breath comes in? What happens between the thighs, in the buttocks? What happens in the jaws, in the forehead? What happens behind the throat as the breath comes in? And then what happens as the breath goes out? I find that there is a slight, and it's a whisper, not a shout, there's a slight niggle to become ready, to become involved with the inhalation. An implication that I need to be ready for something, which I have to resist. And there's a natural soothing that follows quite naturally every single exhalation. Whether we try or not, we can make it much more profound, much deeper, much more effective if we decide to release all the muscles in the body as we breathe out. So if as you breathe out, you decide shoulders, thighs, hips, buttocks, throat, tummy, face, back of the body, front of the body, soles of the feet, inside of the knees, where have you got? And these places respond very easily. If we look at the breath itself now, and from the lungs point of view, so now if you slide your attention as far as you can, and you're the only one that knows. They're your lungs. No one else could ever do this, ever, ever, ever. So inside your lungs, what's it feel like to breathe, to watch the breath? I find it quite natural to slightly expand the breath when I'm doing this, just so that I can feel more clearly. So there's something a bit more tangible to notice. So as you receive the inhalation through the bridge of the nose, and release the exhalation, how does that feel from the abdomen, from the middle section? Make the breath a little bit bigger, not huge. You're not doing a full yoga breath, just a little bit bigger. The first breathing exercise, actually no, the first breathing exercise I think I'll do is a very, very simple 5 in, 5 out. So this is just to focus you completely on your breath now. I'll be doing the counting. You don't have to do the counting. You just, anytime, head position, even in the body, quiet in the shoulders. You watch, you stay as audience. As you breathe in, you try to breathe in through the bridge of the nose. Remember, you're not setting off the landlady who lives in the shoulders and the throat. You're being surreptitious as you get the breath into the bottom part of the lung. And then as you breathe out, you relax. Now, if the breath isn't going to take a full 5 in, 5 out, so there'll be a natural pause. And breathe in, watch the breath come in, and watch the breath go out. Let it go, release. And receive, and release. And receive 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 gently, quietly. And receive, release and relax. And receive without upsetting your equilibrium. And release and soften inside a bit. And receive, watching the breath come in and watching the breath go out. And watching the transitions now. So watching the breath come in smoothly, pause, and watching the breath become the exhalation, and that leaves gently. Pause, and then that becomes the inhalation, quietly. Pause, and that becomes the exhalation, easily. Pause, and that becomes the inhalation, bit by bit. Pause, and that becomes the exhalation. Pause, and that becomes the inhalation, gently, and then that just becomes the exhalation quietly. Making the breath a tad longer now. Becomes the inhalation, watch it come in, and then pause. And then from that pause, let the breath go out gently, 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 and then pause whenever the breath has left you. And then let that quietly become the inhalation, softly, and pause, and that becomes the exhalation. So you're weaving the breath now, and then pause at the end of that exhalation, and now the next inhalation is arriving, softly, 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 pause, and release gently, 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 pause. And it comes in softly, quietly, and then just pause. And let this one go gently, 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 gently. And breathe naturally. And watch what happens as the breath comes and goes. So you're kind of a fly on the wall documentary of your own breath. You're trying to see what it does when you're not in the room. What does the breath do when you're not controlling it? Is it the inhalation and the exhalation the same? Does one feel better? Is there a difference between them? Is that an assumption? An ill-founded assumption? Is that all the same to you, the inhalation and the exhalation? How can you tell which is the inhalation and the exhalation? Which are the physical messages that are letting you know what's going on? I want to look at Viloma today, which many of you know is the pausing breath. And I think it's best to start with the inhalation. It can be very churning to do this with an inhalation. So I just want to do it today with the exhalation. And the visualization that I use, because of course I use visualization, is it's a lift shaft. And it's a very small block of flats that doesn't really need a lift. The top floor is at the base of the brain, the top of the spine. That's where the full inhalation is. And then as you breathe out, you go down, you're on the third floor, you go down to the second floor, pause, go down to the first floor, pause, and then go down to the ground floor and let all the rest of the air out. The lift comes in and you watch the breath come up the spine, not stopping on any of the floors on the way up. And then the exhalation goes down, and then you just long enough for you to tell yourself, okay, second floor goes down to the first floor. You just stop, long enough to acknowledge to yourself that you have stopped, paused, and then go down and breathe out quietly. And you must do this at your own speed. As you breathe in, try not to set off your body. Really, it takes all your attention, actually, not to engage the shoulders, the face in any way, the throat. And then there's lots of hidden places, like deep inside the groins, around the solar plexus, base of the skull. Places that you have that I won't necessarily be tightening. So as you breathe in, place your body as you watch this lift go all the way up the spine. Keep going. This is a constant breathing exercise now for the next 2 minutes. And on the exhalation, you stop it, you breathe out a little bit, pause. Breathe out the next lump, pause. Breathe out all the way and pause. And then if you want to tie this back to the lung, this visualization, you come up to the top floor, you breathe out the top third of the lung, pause. Breathe out the next third of the lung, pause. Breathe out the bottom third of the lung, wait. Until you watch the inhalation arriving. If you don't hold the breath out, but if you actively don't do the inhalation, but watch for it, it will come soon enough. It comes rushing in, and you want to temper that rush. You don't want to gasp for the inhalation. Occasionally, if you've really breathed out a bit too much, you will find yourself gasping. So the next time, don't breathe out quite so fully, so that you don't need to gasp for the inhalation. Another 30 seconds of this. Breathing quietly and not setting the body off. The breath comes all the way to the base of the brain, the forehead, the face. You wouldn't know by looking at your face where the breath is. And the breath goes down, top third, down, pause, second third. And then there's a bit of work maybe as you breathe out all the way down, 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 down to the bottom. And relax and breathe normally. So we haven't done anything physical today, and I don't want to spoil our quietness. But it is interesting sometimes when you become into a quiet state, first of all, to acknowledge, so to notice, how does this feel? If you were just taking a snapshot of how your body feels now, you've been working on the breath, but I suspect that the body feels quiet. Can you gently let the arms float up, gently, slow, as if you're moving through a viscous gel, so there's no speedy anything possible as the arms drift up just to shoulder height and the fingers stay soft and you don't engage the shoulders. So we're working with the quietness that we've established, to just let the arms come up to shoulder height and then see what we can do about having them there, but not engaging the shoulders, not tightening the face. What's going on in the back of the neck? What's going on behind the throat? What's going on in the buttocks and thighs? Can you gently put the palms together? If you've got shoulder problems, don't go any higher. If you haven't, exhale. Now, thinking about the weight going down on the chair and the weight going down on with the feet. If you're on the chair, the hands go up in the air, above the head. And then see what can you do to have them there with your Mona Lisa your empty tummy, your quiet back of the neck, your nothing going under the thighs, and this lovely heavy basin that you're sitting in. One more exhalation to watch how, as you breathe out, you can use that exhalation to even soften the arm muscles in this position. Good. Gently, still in our viscous, underwater, peculiar environs, we let the hands drift down, back, and enjoy the weight of them when they get there. Now if you're to take another snapshot of the body, are you even on both sides? Is the face empty? Are the shoulders empty? Let's do some alternate nostril breathing. Many of you will have done this in your own way. And there is a sort of a pucker way where you do this peculiar thing with your fingers and thumb. I used to do that, and I prefer these days to support the hand that I'm using to cover my nose, to make sure that when you shut the nose, the only watch out here is when you do shut one nostril, you don't push it. You don't want to make your nostrils at all sore. So breathe in and out and enjoy the luxury of breathing through both nostrils. Shut the left and breathe in through the right. Shut the right, breathe out through the left. Breathe in through the left. Receive. Shut the left, open the right, breathe out through the right. Check the jaws, check the back of the neck. Receive when you're ready through the right. Shut the right, open the left, breathe out through the left. Breathe in through the left, receive. Shut the left, open the right, breathe out through the right. Breathe in, receive through the right. Cover the right, open the left, breathe out through the left. Breathe in through the left. Now I want to carry on at your own speed for another minute. You basically cover and change after the inhalation. So after the inhalation, you cover that nostril and breathe out through the other. You may count. If you want to ensure that the inhalation and the exhalation is even, you can count yourself. In, 2, 3, swap. 2. Give yourself a kind of a metronome count. Okay, release and really enjoy the luxury of breathing in through both nostrils, which it is. Now I just want to do one more viloma before we get and do a little bit, teeny weeny bit of action, nothing gymnastic. But before we do anything at all, I do just want to do one more viloma, but this time, which is the pausing breath, going back to the lift, but this time we're going to the basement. So you breathe in up to the 3rd floor, exhale to the 2nd floor, pause to the 1st floor, pause to the ground floor, pause. It goes all the way down now to the basement, double basement. Gosh, this is a very deep basement. And you really do, so you turn the viloma into a full exhalation. And you end up squeezing All the U's, stale air out of your lung. Try not to engage the shoulders. Try not to skew up the face. Try not to tense the legs as you do this. The body wants to be unaware. The breath comes in your own time. Don't try and follow anyone else's rhythm with this, because it's a slightly tougher breath and it needs to follow your own pattern. We all have our own pattern. So in your own time, your breath goes up, up, up. Hopefully for many of you, you're with where the breath is in your body at any time. At any time, it's going all the way up the center of the spine to the base of the brain. Comes the exhalation, goes down a little bit, stops, goes down a little bit, stop, goes down a little bit, stop, goes down further, further, further into this very, really surprisingly deep basement that you have in your building. I find, so I'm just going to tell you what my watch outs are. You have different ones. I find when I end up doing a full breath, I tend to grip my buttocks. I tend to clench my jaws. I tend to tighten my forehead. The shoulders become definitely ready to help out here. The Adam's apple is in danger of setting itself on. Okay, so let's just then let that go, let all the breathing exercises go. And we are going to gift ourselves, well, I'm going to call it meditation, even though it's going to be very short. And by meditation, I mean just going back into audience mode, watching yourself sitting here in the chair with a wide awake awareness, an awareness that feels everything, the skin, the inside of the body, the tension, the weight, everything. You can smell, you can hear, your awareness grows beyond the room, and in the center of it, crystal clear, is every aspect of yourself. So one more time, just taking stock. If you are feeling ever so comfortable and like you really are not that fussed if you don't move, congratulations. It's one of the most marvelous paybacks of meditation and the work that we've done. So to come out of it, lean on you. By the way, if you're really happy there and you just want to meditate from this point, I do understand. But I think for many people, we're going to want to have enough. So we're going to lean forward and then come out of our chair. I'm going to put my mat down. Let's just do a little cat. Big hands, knees under the hips, empty in the square that we started with. So come back to that square in the back of the body. And before you start, just check that you've disintegrated the skin on the back of the torso, top of the shoulders, around the top of the thighs, the weight going down to the knees. And then as you exhale, the weight of the hands goes into, you're not pushing, but you feel the heels of the hands go into the floor, the knees drop. Breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out. Until the underside of the body becomes cavernous, and then breathe in, come back the other way. So as you breathe in, the tail comes forward. Sorry, the tail gets pulled back, like someone, a tall person behind you is pulling your tail, and your spine bends in the other direction. So it's a wave-like motion. You breathe out and you arch, you breathe in and you convex, like an upside down arch. Exhale. Now your driving is the diaphragm, which is why I talked about it last week, but it's also the stomach muscles. The engine is the breath. And the fuel is the attention. Let's just have a little lie down on the ground, having done that. Just hold the legs. And let's just put the left foot on the ground, hold the right knee, and see if the right knee wants to come in towards you. Don't yank on it. Certainly don't hurt your knee. If it's difficult for you to reach the front of the shin, you can always hold it around the back of the thigh. Check that your neck isn't at a funny angle, that your face hasn't gone off in its normal story. So quiet inside the face. Now this is another position to watch the breath. So as the breath comes in, you expand. And as the breath leaves the body, you follow that by taking up any slack. So if there's a softening in the top of the right hip, you take advantage of that by drawing the knee in closer to you. You can slide, let's slide the left leg flat on the ground now. And see if you can really let that left leg drop. We're not going to do anything else. We're not going to do anything harder or more challenging. So see if you can reassure your shoulders. See if you can reassure your jaws, your stomach. And see if you can really release the leg that's straight on the ground. This may not look like much of a position, but from the inside, there's quite a lot going on. And it would be great if you could capture the degree of calm that you had when you were sitting just a moment ago. Because this movement is simple enough, hopefully, for most of us to have that degree of calm. Okay, let's swap sides. So just put the right foot on the ground, bring up the left knee, see how far it goes, check that you're straight again, that your hips have got the same amount of weight, which is not actually going to be exactly accurate because your legs are doing odd things. What I suppose I mean is you have to release the hip and pelvis on the side of the bent leg. At the end of the exhalation, I'm hoping we'll find there's a completely normal, natural drawing in, the knee settles. So when you first went into the position, there was a natural resistance at the top of the groin, but gradually, just by being quiet and soothing yourself and not taking liberties, you can let that leg come in further and further. And if that isn't easy, if it doesn't come in easily, then don't do this next bit of straightening, sliding the right heel down and letting that right leg go flat on the ground. And have a look, see again, what physical sign in the body is, what's happened? Can you feel a reaction in the throat or anywhere in the face or the shoulders? The arms are clearly being used. Are they being used more than they need to be? What about the bent leg? That should be empty. And the leg on the floor, that's just a weight. It's just, if your knees are not problematic, I know for some of you they are, don't do this next thing. Just rest with your feet on the floor. Otherwise, soles of feet together. So the little toes go together. The big toes don't need to, although they often will. And hold them with your hands. I lifted my head up to do that, and I'm going to put my head down again. Without having my chin up, trying to keep the chin vaguely in. Riding the wave of release. That is the natural outcome of every exhalation. It's a gift. Can you feel that lovely square of the body, lovely and soft against the ground? Now, don't worry too much about where the legs may or may not be going. Good. It is time to relax, but before we do, I just want to, I think we may run a couple of minutes over. If you forgive me, feel free to walk away, of course, the schedule. Just arms at shoulders height, rocking from side to side, and then let your weight go all the way down. I'm going to my left side first. So the left knee, bent knee goes all the way over to the floor, and then the right knee can hang in the air or may drift down towards it. The shoulder is ideally on the floor. It comes up, then bend the elbow in and see if you can relax that right shoulder. Or, even better, keep the right shoulder on the ground and keep the right knee in the air. Because you want to be able to concentrate on releasing the shoulder. And if you have neither the shoulder nor the knee quite down, you won't be able to release either. So it all happens at the end of the exhalation. People ask me, the breath is the soundtrack to the whole practice. You breathe in, you don't become tense, you breathe out. Using the exhalation, not just noticing, using the exhalation to embrace the softness that comes. And you can't go further than the ground. You can trust the ground not to let you go. Can you, just before we stop, undo the underneath shoulder, the underneath arm, the underneath thigh, the jaws? And by the way, for those of you who don't practice with me regularly, what I nearly always say in this is, isn't it weird how much more comfortable it is when you've been in this one for a couple of minutes than when you first go into it? The body does accept and soften. Okay. When you're ready, the right knee, rolling the base of the pelvis around and the ground until the right knee goes down on the other side. then gradually, the left knee goes down towards it. You can just rest your hand on the underside knee, by the way, or on the top knee. The first couple of breaths are definitely the hardest. And if you are effective, if you turn off the shoulder that you're going towards and the buttock, if you open the throat, if you can't do these things, then don't have the leg down, have the left leg, hanging, and then quieten from there. Empty lips, empty face, Adam's apple, wide forehead, quiet jaws. Oh, the ground, have me, I'm all yours. One last exhalation to really slide down. Whoa, and melt, wax-like, into a puddle. Slightly weird-shaped puddle. Good. Relaxation, lying on the ground. Feet bent more straight. Be warm. And when you're on the ground, you've got an eye bag, by the way. It's nice to use it for this practice as much as any other. Dropping. Just drop the weight into the ground. This is one of the things that I absolutely love about yoga is that you don't actually need to buy anything. I mean, we do mostly buy a mat, and it's nice to have a sort of little place to do our practice. It isn't actually essential. You don't need anything for yoga that you don't have at all times, every moment in your life. These are the gifts, and they allow you to drop. The first gift is gravity. Tools, actually, better to use the word tools. We use them. We use gravity. The sucking that you can feel now is holding you to the ground. You could no more float, not a fraction of a millimetre for a fraction of a moment. None of us can. We don't float. Gravity has us so firmly. We may be able to jump a bit, but we come straight down again. So give yourself up to this sucking from underneath. Don't fight it. We are pathetic in the face of gravity. There's nothing we can do. So allow gravity to have you now. And working with gravity, another wonderful tool, gift, is the ground. And we're lucky enough, all of us, not to be on a boat. So the ground is not moving, and it's not going to give way. And we can, no matter how much weight we have, the ground will have more of us. So as you lie there, feeling yourself sucked into the ground, feel also how securely held you are by the ground. Our third tool is our breath. And it's a very powerful one. And I talked about it a lot, and we've played with it a bit today, and we'll keep coming back to it, obviously. But for now, just the awareness of what it's doing is all it takes for you to be in control of your body's response to it. So even as you lie there on the ground, this fabulous, safe ground with this huge, powerful gravity, there is still some feeling of anxiety that can come in with an inhalation. and will naturally release with an exhalation. And without any of these things are, or none of these tools are anything without the fourth, which is our attention, our focus. And it seems to me the point of our practice is developing the muscle of our attention. So for now, just use this attention before you drift off to just check that your face is quiet, the eyeballs, the lips, the jaws, that the neck is quiet all around and including behind the Adam's apple. That where the neck meets the shoulders is as empty a space as you can just think it to be. The shoulders are quiet, and that includes the top of the arm. So the left arm, the left armpit, the right arm, the right armpit. That all around the heart is resting. That the tummy is soft and empty and innocent. The full weight of the pelvis is abandoned to the ground, and that the legs are just stuck on the end of the pelvis somewhere next to you. Not your problem for the moment. It's just this very gentle, into the quietness, you may notice this very gentle breath doing its own thing. Oh.